My captain is dead. Tell King Manuel that the red blood of Francisco de Almeida, conqueror of the Indies, stains a white beach at the edge of his empire. After braving Spanish knights, Berber horsemen, and Indian elephants, it was the king's lost faith in a devoted servant that took his life's breath. Lies they whispered in our king's ear. They called Don Francisco mad with lust for power, riches, and glory. Those jackals, those men who had never set foot on a swaying caravel in a monsoon, or felt the heat of the African sun sting upon a redder neck. Was not my captain's devotion measured in his sweat and blood he poured across 3 continents and 3 oceans? I was a boy when the battlefield of Toro birthed the legend of Don Francisco, while the last of the Moors held in Granada the Christian kingdoms of Iberia warred for the throne of Castile. King Henry had died, leaving his kingdom to his daughter Juana, wife of King Alfonso of Portugal. The union of the 2 lands was celebrated in our country, but for the ambition of a queen, it was not to be. Queen Juana's 25-year-old aunt, Isabella, sought the throne for herself. Her powerful husband, the King of Aragon, led his army into Castile to seize the crown for his wife and unite that kingdom with his own. The armies of Aragon and Portugal met near the city of Toro to decide the fate of 3 kingdoms. Despite the successes of Don Francisco and Prince Juan, the Battle of Toro was indecisive. After 3 more years of war, a compromise was reached. Isabella was crowned Queen of Castile, uniting that kingdom with Aragon into a unified Spain. In exchange, the wise King Alfonso, attuned to the changing times, received Spanish assurances that the African coast and the waters and lands to the east were a Portuguese dominion. I began my journey with Don Francisco 2 decades ago in Morocco. 13 years had passed since the Battle of Toro, and the grizzled soldier had risen to be an esteemed counselor to King Juan. Courtly life did not suit my captain well, however. He convinced the king to send him to Africa to fight the Moors. King Alfonso had conquered the Tangier coast before the war with Aragon, but Portugal's hold on Muslim Africa was tenuous. Barbary pirates menaced the coast, and Berber tribesmen emerged from the lifeless deserts in fierce rage. Against these predators stood a fragile outpost of Christendom on an island in the Locos River. The garrison was led by a soldier named Alfonso de Albuquerque, whose path would cross with ours again in a different world. My captain set sail to take command of this garrison and re-establish Portugal's hold on Tangier. It would not be the last time that Don Francisco carried the flag of Portugal to the dangerous ages of the Christian world. While we fought the centuries-old war against the Moors in North Africa, other sons of Portugal were the pioneers of a new age. On small, leaky caravels, they took the first daring steps from Europe and lifted a shroud that had obscured our understanding of the wider world for a millennium. The world was vast, far vaster than we had ever imagined, but men like Bartholomew Diaz and Vasco da Gama reached distant shores and gave us the first glimmers of a coming global empire. The Turks and Moors might flash their scimitars over the Mediterranean, but they wore no armor on their backs. There in the Indian Ocean, an ancient trade flourished to the enrichment of the Muslim world. Armed with cannons and ships built to withstand the storms of the Atlantic, the sons of Portugal would fall upon this world like a famished lion in the fold. It was 5 years ago that I went with Don Francisco to the Andes. His appointment to the viceroyship of India by the young King Manuel had shocked the Portuguese court. Don Francisco was the champion of King Juan, the deceased cousin of the recently crowned king, and the Almeidas had favored their rival Clement to the Portuguese throne. The king's intentions were the topic of many hushed whispers. We sailed for many months across the edge of the world, preyed upon by pirates, storms, and disease. But as our leaky ships rounded the southern cape of Africa, we saw the first glimmers of the riches of the Orient. 3 mighty citadels guarded the lucrative trade waters of the Swahili coast, where the merchants traded ivory, gold, spices, and jewels from the innards of Africa to the fringes of faraway China. Weathered by the long voyage, Don Francisco sought trade and hospitality from the first of the citadels, but their stubborn ruler, an usurper who had slain the rightful sultan, arrogantly closed his gates to us. Finding an exiled African prince with ties to a rebel army, my captain cunningly hatched a plan to take the Swahili coast by fire and steel. Empires are built on the ruins of dead empires. The pile of burnt stone we left in Mombasa, once a palace, was the foundation for the new Empire of Portugal. Our conquest of the Swahili coast sent waves across the Indian Ocean to the wealthy trading cities of Zanzibar, Mogadishu, Calicut, and others. We were met with either fearful gifts or the closed gates of those with the foolishness to challenge our cannons. Few would continue to make that mistake. After months at sea, we reached our goal, the rich Malabar coast of India, land of 1,000 gods, and a haven for spices, gold, and silver. In the brackish lagoons of Kerala, among temples dedicated to strange serpent gods, we established our trading posts in the cities of Cananor and Cochin. From these cities, my captain and his son Lorenco cunningly manipulated the feuding Rajas and Sultans. They maneuvered through the politics of spice and faith, always with an eye for the most profitable outcome. One Hindu prince, however, defied us. This nameless ruler of Calicut, known only by the title the Zamorin, threatened to break the carefully crafted deals and rivalries from which Portugal profited. By sword and shrewd tongue, giving no credence to differences of religion or race, he gained allies in the Rajas, in the Sultans, and in rulers as far away as Egypt and Venice. Even our own allies among the Indians fell for his intrigue. The treacherous Kolathiri Raja, Prince of Cananor, betrayed us for the Zamorin's gold. Surrounded by enemies, it seemed the hands of fate had turned so quickly against us. Though the Zamorin limped away from Cananor bloodied, his resolve was untouched by our cannons. In driving men to war, gold can be more powerful than gold. For centuries, the wealth of the Indies had passed through the Indian Ocean, carried by Arab, Indian, and Somali merchants to the port cities of Arabia, Egypt, and Africa. From there, endless caravans carried wealth across the desert to Alexandria, then to Istanbul, Venice, and Genoa. By rounding Africa, Portuguese traders had upset the traditional balance of this world. With our forts in India, we cut a trade that had enriched the Muslim sultans and the Venetian doge alike. Don Francisco held a knife to the throat of our enemies, and as the lion fed, vultures and jackals appeared. We had taken the other side of the world by storm, but our old enemies followed. As the Zamorin beat his war drums, Ottomans and Egyptians rallied to him. Their ships were carried over the desert and rebuilt by treacherous Venetians. In India, an unlikely Russian renegade called Malik Ayaz raised the Muslim armies of Gujarat in defense of the Hindu Zamorin. Gold had truly become more powerful than God. As this coalition of Hindus, Muslims, and Christians descended on us, liars and jackals flocked to the court of King Manuel. They filled his ears with lies that Don Francisco had betrayed Portugal and convinced the young king to dispatch an armada led by Alfonso de Albuquerque to relieve my captain of the viceroyship. Don Francisco, however, was in no mood for politics. Tragedy struck off the coast of Chol. In a heroic naval battle, my captain's beloved son Renko was slain by Amir Hussein, admiral of the Mamluk fleet of Egypt. Though he deeply loved his son, Don Francisco did not shed tears for his death. In repayment, my captain vowed to shed blood. With his son's death avenged, Don Francisco surrendered the viceroyship of India and wrote his final chapter. He would not return to his beloved Portugal. Landing in southern Africa to collect water, his party was ambushed by the Khoikhoi natives. We found his body on that forsaken white beach. In the 5 years since we departed Lisbon, we followed Don Francisco to the edge of the earth. We fought ebony-skinned warriors in the jungles and savannas of Africa, battled Mamluk sailors on the decks of galleys heaving in the monsoon waves, and struggled against armies of elephants and camels in the sprawling cities of India. Our caravans had taken us to the distant shores unknown to our ancestors, and awoken Europe to a world beyond our dreams.